Welcome to the Rise and Reinvent podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Christian Henderson. Christian's career spans the music entertainment industry, and he's a proud Nashville stereotype. In this episode, we dive into his personal journey from high school band days to discovering a passion for the music business and eventually working with some of the biggest names in entertainment. We also explore how Christian navigated the challenges of balancing career growth, mental health, and family life, all while staying true to his roots. Stay tuned for insights on reinvention, mental health struggles, and the strategies Christian has used to transform challenges into opportunities. Get ready for an inspiring conversation that shows how embracing vulnerability and facing personal growth head on can lead to success. Let's jump in. Today, I'm excited to welcome Christian Henderson. Christian is Senior Director of Talent Partnerships at G7 Entertainment Marketing. Christian has spent his entire career within the music entertainment industry, making him a proud Nashville stereotype. He is a diehard Philadelphia sports fan, a vinyl junkie, and joyous dad of two kids. He's one of the most tenured employees at G7 Marketing, currently serving as their Senior Director of Talent Partnerships, leading the company's business in the keynote speaker and celebrity appearance space. Thank you for joining the Rise and Reinvent podcast, Christian. We're
Oh my
happy to have
gosh.
you here,
Thank you. Thank you. This is fun. I'm so excited.
as am I. All right, so let's dive in. I want to start with telling us more about you as a person, not just your career, but the man behind the person and the career. So let's get started.
I think there's a lot of me that I think a lot of people can empathize with, which is it is quite difficult to break away the career from the person. But I can honestly say from my perspective, I I just I loved entertainment from the beginning and most particularly music. So I am grateful in that a lot of my identity is shared with my career in a very positive way. But like you said in the bio, I have two wonderful kids that keep me quite active, and I love participating in their life. I'm often one of their coaches for their various sports, and obviously, sort of just the dad taxi around town and just love being a part of their lives and hearing how they're growing. My oldest just got into middle school this year, so it was a big deal for us and our family. And I got a 9-year-old daughter who's always ready to be a wild card. Um, but in terms of other stuff, I'd like to think I'm again a pretty classically normal, but I'd like to think I'm weird, but everybody's weird, right? In just I love sports, I love playing, watching, I love everything that you'd think someone of my career might like, which is, you can see all of that music memorabilia behind you, and that's up there not specifically because it's my job, but also because I love it. Um, I live and breathe it, and sometimes I think my friends and family find that quite annoying because I can what we often refer to in my family is push up our glasses and be like, well, actually, that record was such a. So I'm a big nerd, is basically what I'm trying to tell you.
Excellent. Well, I was going to go there next. That
Yeah.
looks like an amazing room for a music lover. And so, where I'd like to go next is the early days of Christian. Were you born into music in your family, or how did it go? So, just starting with a little bit more about where you grew up and how you entered into the music industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think it really connects well. So I mean, music's been forever a part of my life. not in a way that it was like passed down from my parents or other family members, but I will say, generationally speaking, I am the middle of three boys, and all three of us have some sort of really obsessive qualities over music. My younger brother is a professional musician. My older brother went into film and TV. And so we all have sort of entertainment in our DNA, if you want to call it that. But where I really kind of took hold of this and wanted to make it my life is I like to call it my 14-year-old me theory, and I'll sort of bring it back to it. But high school, played in your silly typical high school bands, won a battle of bands here and there, and it was fun. I played bass, but you know, I wasn't very good. I can't sing worth a damn, but but hell yes, I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be backstage, and not from the like schmoozy kind of experience. Like I found great pride in finding new artists that were on the cusp of being blown up and become famous and all these sort of things that over time felt like I had a knack for finding talent. And lo and behold, through my high school guidance counselor, I found out that, hey, there are actually universal universities with majors that specify in music business. And I went to one, Northeastern up in Boston, and then became kind of a rock club street rat for a while there, working predominantly in the Middle East, which is a independent venue on the Cambridge side of Boston. And I just it's ingrained in me. I can't not be around live music. When you talk about sort of those, what are the things that fill your cup, heal you from all of some of the hardships that you might go through. Going to a live show, particularly like I'll go to any live show, but particularly one that I'm truly passionate about, like nothing will rejuvenate me more than being in that moment, hearing the music live and just breathing it. It's just ingrained in me so badly. Um, and from there, my wife is from the South, and we made a transition down to Nashville before it was. I'd like to say again, I'm East Nashvilleian, so anyone who knows East Nashville, we're all pretentious. But I was also East Nashville before it was cool. But
Mhm.
moved here in 2008. Worked for one of the larger talent agencies in the world, creative artist agency, for about 4 years, and then jumped over to G7 and um, have been there ever since with great pride in sort of developing our talent buying division, our talent partnerships, and where I'll bring back the 14-year-old me theory because that's where I find myself continuing to enjoy my career in a very distinct way that, maybe some others aren't fortunate enough to. But, and you can see some of these names up here. You might recognize a few vinyls that are maybe they're not as cool as they used to be, kind of thing. But but God damn it, if I was in my bedroom at 14 years old, obsessing over, you know, um, Blink 182, who you see behind you, or Green Day,
Mhm.
or any of those names, and dreaming of the moment where I get to culminate my career in working with them. And those are some big names. I also was, I grew up in the 90s, so there was a lot of silly 90s rock music that I obsessed over. And those guys are pretty frequently bookable on the corporate circuit, which is what I do. And so, whether I truly like, let's say, Everclear right now, no, but I did when I was 14, and it really satisfies me to know that if I could go back in time and tell the 14-year-old version of me that, like, stick with it because because what you wanted will happen. And it gives me great sort of pleasure and confidence in that this was what I was supposed to do or what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. So many of us don't know at 14 what we want to do, let alone the schools we want to go to or how we want to get it done. So kudos to you for that insight. Um, so that leads me to my next question is, you've had a journey in the
Yeah.
entertainment and music industry. Can you tell us about a pivotal moment that sparked reinvention for you? Because this podcast is really about you have great success, but maybe it wasn't easy along the journey from 14 until now. So tell us a little bit more about the reinvention that happened in that period.
Yeah. Well, first things first, I'm a self-described introvert, and the music business is not one that rewards that type of personality. So it was a kill or be killed kind of thing that allowed me to become a different person over time, knowing that this was such a high goal of mine that I was willing to put myself out there in a place that I wasn't sort of intrinsically comfortable with. And over time, I learned how to make small talk. Learned how to negotiate deals, all that sort of stuff. But one critical moment that I really love sharing is it's intertwined with a significant mental health journey I had, which is to say that I grew up a pretty anxious kid. And as you can imagine from watching, shows like Entourage or any other kind of like entertainment inside, there's a lot of sharks out there, right? And so you get
Mhm.
kind of terrified of those who have the confidence or the ability to um, be crass or blunt with you, and you fear for your job and you fear for your success, and you constantly question whether you're supposed to do this or not. And also back in the day, the first few years of G7, we were only a small little ship, maybe 10 people most. And so we lived and died by each event we booked. And so the fear of losing a client or screwing up a talent contract kept me up at night. I lost nights, nights of sleep because I was fearful of either confrontation or any of those things. And I started to develop a real serious work anxiety. And it wasn't until right before my son was born, so this is now about 11 years ago, um, we were at breakfast with my wife's family, and an innocuous email came across from a client about a booking with, and I'll just name drop because I was so happy to be able to share this with him this year. But Sal Khan, who is the founder of Khan Academy and is a wonderful guy, super intelligent, and really interesting to hear about his disruptive take on American education. But I booked him for an event with a client, and the client just asked a simple deal point about his contract. And back then, 11 years ago, my phone didn't operate under cloud situations where I could pull up something very easily, and I didn't. I couldn't get it. I couldn't get to the contract. I couldn't quell my fear that I had done something wrong. And I started to have a panic attack right there at a breakfast table with all of my in-laws, and I didn't know how to solve that right there. I panicked. Like if I was alone, I would have probably bolted out of that breakfast, driven straight home, popped open my laptop to read the contract and calm this fear. Well, I couldn't do that. And I realized, oh my God, I'm about to be a dad. I cannot pass this feeling along to my kids. It is awful. I need to break this cycle. And so that started it, about an 11-year journey in sort of mental health. understanding where that anxiety stemmed from, where I could reroute it. Neuroplasticity is truly, truly real here. And
Mhm.
I can tell you from it took time, but I was able to have a great moment, like I kind of hinted at, was uh, this spring. It was the first time I was able to. I booked Sal again since that event, since that moment, and that contract itself had a couple little hiccups to it, but I it didn't get to me the way it did. And some of that might be sort of just length of career and knowing what you can do and how you would manage it in the process. But also, I was so proud to be able to walk Sal out of that venue and say, "Hey, you helped change my life, whether you know it or not, because I'm a better employee because of this. I'm a better dad. I'm a better spouse. I'm constantly trying to be a better person in every capacity I am." And work was the place where it all started. Was I recognized that, like, I'm spending, a third of my life doing this job that I thought I really wanted to do and I loved it from a contextual standpoint, but oh my God, it was eating me alive. And so the moment where I was able to recognize, oh, I'm pretty good at this job and it's not eating me the way it used to, was such a great sense of relief. And it means so much to me to see how I've been able to overcome that.
Thank you for sharing that. That is very vulnerable and transparent. And I appreciate you for that because there are many, and I know any industry is hard, but the entertainment media, music industry particularly, is extremely hard and challenging. And so the fact that it was 11 years ago that you started the journey of the mindset shift and therapy and making sure that you were a better father than you might have been prior to that. So wonderful, wonderful things happening. Um,
Yeah, and just to interrupt you real quick, Nicole, like
mhm.
um that journey was put to the test during the pandemic too, because in a rare turn of events, booking speakers was far easier than anything else G7 was doing prior to, virtually speaking. Everybody wanted to book a speaker or a comedian or something like that virtually. Music was a little less, and we have a department within G7 that's more totally physical activation style stuff, and nobody was going anywhere. My ability to handle that stress was definitely put to the test in those moments because I was watching my colleagues get furloughed and knowing that I was potentially the person who could bring them back if I just kept working and kept working. And it really made a difference in the long run to know that I had a little bit of extra tools in my tool belt before that happened.
Okay. So, what strategies have you used to embrace uncertainty and risk?
Well, you definitely have to. I'm a big proponent of, if anybody's familiar with it, CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, and there's I want to say they are called cognitive um, disruptions, but there's a good menu out there in the CBT theory world of thought patterns that will lead you down troublesome paths. And once they were sort of called by name to me, that was a tremendous help. So, one of which is sort of black and white thinking, right? And the idea that either it's going to be the event's going to be successful, or it's not going to be successful. Well, that's not necessarily true. Or this deal point will get me in trouble or it won't. Again, not necessarily true. Fortune telling is a huge component that I think a lot of people do, especially in their careers and in their jobs. Is we as humans we're built to think about the jungle outside our huts and our tribes and stuff, and figure out where that tiger was, right? And so um, forecasting and fortune telling almost always leads you down a path of negativity. You know, even the biggest optimists, I feel, have that fear in them. And so those are definitely some ways I've learned to deal with it. I've been able to see sort of a better work-life balance that has really helped too, in terms of seeing some things personally that needed more of my attention than work. And so that really, really has helped kind of see the forest for the trees for me, you know? And it's just you want to play on your career, and you know you want to know that you want to read your career like a history book as opposed to like a myriad of scar tissue, right?
Mhm.
And you know, history has some bad moments and history has some good moments, and you just got to accept it and then use that moving forward to say, well, this last time I booked this guy, he was kind of a pain for this reason. Well, let's renegotiate that deal coming up so that we know we can avoid that problem. And that's how you do it. You don't really want to do it in a way in which you just always you don't want to go Eeyore into your day, right? You know, everything's going to go bad. No,
Mhm.
it might, but it also might go great, but more than likely it's going to be somewhere in the middle.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
What role did failure play in shaping the person that you are today?
Oh gosh. A lot. A lot. So I'm going to paraphrase him because I just saw his quote, but obviously, as you told everybody, I'm a diehard Philadelphia sports fan, and Jalen Hurts, I saw a quote the other day, our Super Bowl winning quarterback, wink, wink, go Birds. Um, I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't know it exactly, but he said something like, either you win or you learn. You don't lose, you learn.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's a great way to think about it because like I want to always perceive failure as a way to get better. It's been very rarely when you think about it and you try and be honest with yourself that the failures within your career or the failures within your job or even within your life are dead ends. They failures are openings for other things, right? Um, And some of my biggest screw ups have led to better relationships because of it. And I think the more you can accept failure as a place to learn and treat it with sort of an authenticity and honesty that, like, it's okay to fail, you know?
Mhm.
Um, it's not okay to not get back up, right? And that's the stuff that I think I've really, really tried to focus on. I mean, you know, and sometimes you got to take a long time to sit there and um, excuse this term, but it's a coined term of mine, which is simply sometimes you just got to sit in the shit, right? You gotta sit in a moment that doesn't feel good because you did something wrong, and there's nothing you can do about it at that exact moment in time. You just got to sit in the shit, and then when you're ready, get yourself up and get out of there. Sometimes you just can't fix things right away. Um, and it takes time, and you use that failure process and that time period to improve. You shouldn't make it something where you're fearful of your next steps.
And then not sitting in the shit for too long.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Know when it's time to get the hell out of there, right?
Yeah, I love that saying. Um, so you'll have to coin that phrase because
hmm
I
TM.
absolutely. What has been the most unexpected lesson in your career journey?
Oh, I would say no one knows everything. Um, I think as someone who has sort of internally s- focused on honesty in terms of my knowledge and my abilities and not try to produce a sense of false confidence. It's there's been so many moments where I've run into conflict with someone who presented themselves as knowing everything and just being unwilling to augment their style of thinking. And that is definitely something that I've looked to ignore in people. It sounds harsh, but essentially, like we're all the same. Like not everyone knows everything, you know. Let's and those who pretend to just, you know, take them with a grain of salt.
Understood. Yep. Syndrome is real. Uh,
Yes, very true. Very true.
some people believe that perfection is, what they're after, and perfection is the enemy of great.
Yep.
So do your best, show up, and, it doesn't have to be perfect every time.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yep. Let's see. What has been your biggest compromise in life and career?
Family. You know, I think my wife is a fantastically successful marketing executive in the technology space. And we had to compromise a lot in different ways. You know, um, early on, I mean, we've been together for over 20 years, married for now 11 of those years. I'm sorry, no, 14 of those years, excuse me. Kids with 11.
Oh.
I'm in music for a reason. I don't do math. Um,
Okay.
but you know, in the early days, because I knew what I wanted to do, I think that there was sort of a misconception that like I'd go and be Mr. Entertainment Executive. And what ended up happening over the time was I realized, A, she was really, really good at what she was doing. And she took off like a rocket with her career, establishing herself as a really powerful person within her company and within her industry. And I started to really like just being home, you know, and I think some of that was the work anxieties, right? Was that once our kids came along and they needed someone to be there consistently, I was happy to do it. And now, you know, they're a little less needy based on their age. You know, no one's changing diapers over here anymore, putting kids to naps. But and so we have now a little bit more of a probably 50-50 scale as to when one of us travels for business, et cetera, and stuff like that. But in the early days, as my wife was committed to growing her business and her career, um, I was able to negotiate a lot of work from home time prior to the pandemic, and that was that was a compromise we both sort of accepted because we knew that our kids needed someone at home, and I was ready to do it because I think I needed that release valve to sort of gain the strength to go back into the workforce. Now I worked the whole time, but I was able to scale back the intensity in which I worked to be a good father and to be someone who could pick them up at 3 o'clock every day, as opposed to the fives and the six and the sevens that some of us have to do. Um, and spend those afternoons with them, and I'm so grateful for it. But it did require a tremendous amount of compromise and a tremendous amount of sort of honesty and ego, right? That, you know, she was she was on a path that really deserved that attention and that direction, and I was ready to give her that space to do so, so that I could also walk away knowing that I was able to be there for my kids.
Yeah. There's never like a even 50-50 split on family time, work time, self-care. All of these things matter. And at certain points of life, one is going to be a higher priority than the other. And I, as a mother of three boys and married to my husband for 24 years, I truly understand that balance, and there have been conversations where it's like, we can't both have these, high demand, requirement jobs and
Hmm.
raise this family successfully. And so have been times throughout where one of us had to take a step back in order to make sure our kids had what they needed.
Yeah.
So I have 20-year-olds and they're twins, and then I have a 14-year-old. So we're still in the mix of it, but
Yep.
have a little bit more learning. So thank you for sharing that story because it's a
Yeah.
very common one that I'm sure many people are dealing with.
Yeah, and understand that it's going to come with conflict. Understand that it's going to come with reassessment of your role in the relationship and your value within the relationship sometimes becomes very difficult to understand. Um, I think there's so often that traditional American style of partnership where someone is the main breadwinner and then the other isn't, and I think those lines are starting to get comfortably blurry these days.
Yeah.
And what that just ultimately does is that gender roles become kind of in question, and how many times we've referred to it as being dadded, right? When teachers or other parents would just email my wife because she's the mom and that's what the moms do. But lo and behold, I'm the dad who actually was organizing everything or being there for the kids. So all of that stuff becomes difficult to deal with and sometimes becomes a pointed place in your relationship, and you just kind of so much easier said than done, but you gotta drop the ego and really think about how you want to handle the partnership.
Yes. And when kids are involved, of course, what's best for the kids?
Yes.
Forget the gender roles, forget other people's perceptions. What do
Yeah.
they need? But then also, I'm a big believer that self-care is the most important thing. Because if you don't care for yourself mentally, physically, professionally, emotionally, then it's hard to care for others, including your kids and your spouse. And so making that time, which it sounds like, therapy has helped you through those things. That's truly
Yeah.
self-care. Because some people, might need it and don't acknowledge it. So
Yeah.
you're doing that self-care. There's probably a little more you could do.
Oh, I am shout from the mountaintops, one of the worst self-care people when it comes to that stuff. Therapy has been the thing that I've sort of worked around that issue, but yeah, self-care um, doesn't always mean that you have to put yourself first, but it is important. I recognize that it's important. It is the next step in my mental health growth to learn how to do that and not feel like I'm quote unquote burdening um, my wife or my kids by not being there and not taking care of something, etc., because I just needed to go, for a run or something.
Mhm.
But yes, it is so much easier said than done. And I had the mental health stuff was just, it felt so big and so important that it was beyond me. And I was able to, at that moment where I was even more flawed in self-care than I am now, um, I was able to say that it wasn't even just for me, it was for everybody else around me to take this on. So the next steps are saying like, yeah, I'm I need to go for a run, or I'm just gonna go to the record shop and buy a couple vinyl, whatever it may be. But I got to isolate that and work on that. So work in progress over here, Nicole. Work in progress.
Absolutely, for all of us. That's why this podcast is called Rise and Reinvent. Maybe it needs to be Reinvent and Rise. Because without the reinvention, it's hard to do the rise. And it's a
Yeah.
continuous cycle, right? It never stops. It's not like you do it one time and then it's over and you're good for the rest of your life. No. So I appreciate you sharing your story, both the personal side and the career side. I think it's been very inspiring to our listeners. And so my final question
Yeah.
is, what does success look like for you in the future?
Yeah. Total success. Like, I put in my 2 weeks at G7 and I cash in my 401k and all that sort of stuff is, I this sounds stupid, but a little bit of legacy, right? I mean, that's why all this stuff is back here. All this stuff came about because I'm fortunate enough to have a job that allows for this stuff to be hung on a wall, right? And what I really liked about that was, and it happened this weekend too, which was it was physical proof of a career that I could ultimately carry through my kids and they could see it. My daughter had some friends over for a sleepover, and because of the size of her room, they slept in here. And as they were going to bed, the her two friends were like, "Well, why are you huh? Why do you have that sign?" And I was like, "Well, because I've worked with them." And like it was a nice prideful moment to say, like, I have a thing, I have a job that has sort of historical physical relevance, that can be passed along. Um, but ultimately, I think it's about sort of breaking a lot of cycles for me, success, which is I want to see my kids go into their preferred careers and not have to spend the first decade and a half going through the mental health struggle I did. I want them to go into it knowing that their support system is strong and able and willing and present to help them through process and questioning, did I make the right decision, or am I going to screw this up so badly that I'm going to get fired, and all that sort of stuff. I really want that as success. I want to see them not only take my legacy as like this, but also my legacy as working through job anxiety. That,
Mhm.
you know, careers don't have to be scary and challenging. They can be rewarding instead of challenging, right? And so those will be my really big success moments, I think. I'd love to see G7 keep growing and developing deeper relationships within an industry, and that's all well and good. I love the company. I cannot see myself moving out of it because we have such a fantastic work culture over there. Um, so I'm in bed, and I want to grow within it, and make this place a really, really cool place to work, and be remembered for that.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Christian, for all of your insights and everything you shared with the audience. I really enjoyed your journey and I look forward to continued success in the
Well,
future.
thank you so much. This was so much fun. I really, really appreciate you reaching out, and I'm so glad I can share this story. And um, I mean, the biggest thing to all mental health, it starts with knowing that you're not alone. And if I can share this moment of vulnerability, so that someone else can do the same, that's all that pays dividends in terms of every every therapist bill I've ever had to pay for. So hopefully someone can take this with them and get back to work a little clearer.
Thank you for that.
Awesome.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.